Imagine for a second combining the DNA of a 3,000-year-old Arctic sled-pulling endurance machine with, like, a rugged cattle-herding survivor that was basically built for the unforgiving heat of the Australian outback.
Yeah, that is that is a lot of dog.
Right. You get an animal that is frankly too smart for its own good. It's intensely athletic and, well, it demands your absolute best as a leader. So today, we are taking a deep dive into the Husky.
Which is that designer cross between the Siberian Husky and the Australian cattle dog.
Exactly. And because a dog with, this much horsepower rarely thrives in a vacuum, we are also decoding the complex science of managing multi-dog households.
Because you really don't get a dog like this by accident. I mean, it is a clash of two very distinct, very intense canine resumes.
Mhm.
And mixing them together requires a level of management that goes way beyond just, filling a food bowl.
For sure. And to help you navigate this, we've pulled together a massive stack of sources today. We're drawing from veterinary breed profiles from Green Cross Vets, comprehensive pet resource guides from WAG and HEPR, and this is the best part, real, unfiltered owner experiences from the Siberian Husky Forum and Rescue Me.
Those forums are always eye-opening.
Oh, absolutely wild.
Yeah.
And to tackle the pack dynamics, we're looking at multi-dog management manuals from Homeward Pet and the Tasia Blue Rescue. So the mission of this deep dive is to help you understand the profound history driving these brilliant working dogs and to equip you with, like, expert strategies for maintaining peace in a multi-pet home.
Yeah, because to really understand what is happening in your living room when an Husky is tearing through it, we first have to understand the extreme environments and the grueling jobs that originally shaped its parent breeds. I mean, the genetics driving these dogs were forged in literal survival scenarios.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the Siberian Husky side of the family tree. The sources point out that this breed was developed like over 3 millennia ago by the Chukchi people in northeastern Asia.
3,000 years is a long time to perfect a breed.
Right. And these dogs were engineered for one primary purpose, which was tireless sled pulling in freezing sub-zero temperatures. They had to haul light loads over vast expanses of ice, literally just to keep the Chukchi people alive.
But the interesting thing is, because they lived so closely with their humans, I mean, they even slept inside the family tents to provide communal warmth, they developed this famously friendly, highly pack-oriented nature.
Yeah, and their endurance is just unparalleled. I mean, the quintessential historical example of this is the 1925 Great Race of Mercy.
Oh, Balto and Togo.
Yes, those sled dogs ran life-saving diphtheria serum 674 miles across the Alaskan ice, and they did it in just 127 and a half hours.
Which is just staggering to think about.
It really is. So that is a genetic blueprint powering the Husky half of the Husky. It's an animal that is biologically optimized to run until the job is done, completely ignoring fatigue.
Right. And then on the other side of the genetic coin, you have the Australian cattle dog, or the ACD.
The outback survivor.
Exactly. This breed was developed much more recently, back in the 1800s, by settlers in Australia who needed a dog tough enough to handle untamed, aggressive cattle over this incredibly rugged, blistering hot terrain.
Because the original dogs they brought from Europe they couldn't hack it.
No, they completely failed. They either collapsed in the extreme heat or they were kicked to death by the rough stock. So those early settlers had to get highly creative with their breeding program.
What did they mix together?
Well, they took a breed called the Smithfield and they mixed it with feral Australian dingoes.
Wait, actual dingo?
Yes, actual wild dingoes. They did that to inject silent stalking abilities and extreme heat tolerance. And then they folded in Scottish collies for high-level intelligence and problem-solving, and this is wild, even Dalmatians.
Dalmatians? Why?
For their natural affinity for running alongside horses.
Wow. And the resulting herding mechanism is fascinating. The Australian cattle dog herds by literally nipping at the heels of stubborn 1,000-pound cattle and then ducking away before they can get kicked.
It's a very specific, dangerous job.
Very. And they are intensely protective. They bond incredibly tightly to one person, and they are practically indestructible. Our sources note they actually hold longevity records. Like, there was an Australian cattle dog named Bluey who lived to be 29 years old.
Which is incredible.
I mean, for context, that is 151 in dog years.
Yeah, it speaks volumes about the cellular resilience of the ACD genetics. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the predatory sequence of a wild canine. It goes orient, eye, stalk, chase, grab bite, kill bite.
Okay, sure.
The ACD has been selectively bred to freeze that exact sequence right at the grab bite. So that heel nipping isn't aggression, You know, it's an interrupted prey drive that they are genetically compelled to execute.
So looking at this combination, it kind of feels like being assigned to a wildly unbalanced group project.
How so?
Well, on one hand, you have the Husky, right? The enthusiastic marathon runner who just wants to pull the whole team forward, go explore the world, and make friends with literally every stranger they meet.
Right, very social.
But on the other hand, you have the Australian cattle dog, the strict, highly protective project manager who will literally bite your ankles if you step out of line and just wants to micromanage the movement of everything in the room. So how do these conflicting traits like the friendly wanderer and the protective herder actually manifest in a single animal?
That's the million-dollar question. You have to look at the underlying denominator between both breeds, which is drive. When you mix a dog bred to run endlessly with a dog bred to control movement, you get a highly intelligent, intensely athletic animal with this humming central nervous system.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. What that means for you, the owner, is that this dog absolutely must have a job to do.
Hmm.
If you don't provide an outlet, those deeply ingrained instincts, the running, the nipping, the puzzle solving, they don't just vanish.
Right, they have to go somewhere.
Exactly. They turn inward, and they almost always manifest as severe household destruction.
Okay, so let's look at the physical reality of sharing a space with one of these dogs. They fall into the medium-sized category, usually standing between 17 to 25 inches tall at the shoulder. They weigh anywhere from 35 to 65 pounds.
And they inherit a remarkably thick double coat from both sides of the family tree.
Oh yeah, which means they shed heavily. You're going to be brushing them constantly, especially when they blow their coats during seasonal changes.
But while they are undeniably beautiful dogs, that beauty often comes with a hidden biological cost. Many Huskies inherit the Merle gene from the cattle dog side.
That's the gene responsible for those stunning mottled coat patterns, right? And the striking blue eyes, or heterochromia, where the dog has two different colored eyes.
Yes, exactly.
But the sources mention that this specific gene predisposes them to deafness and eye issues like progressive retinal atrophy or PRA and cataracts. But they don't really explain why a coat color affects a dog's ears. Like, what is the mechanism there?
It is a fascinating quirk of embryonic development. So the Merle gene works by randomly diluting or stripping pigment from the dog's fur and eyes.
Okay.
But pigment cells, which are known as melanocytes, they aren't just for color. They are actually a crucial structural component in the inner ear.
Wait, really? The inner ear has pigment cells?
Yeah. Specifically, they help maintain the chemical balance of the fluid in the ear canal, which translates sound waves to the brain. So if the Merle gene strips those pigment cells from the inner ear, the dog literally loses the mechanical ability to hear.
That is incredible and kind of scary. So you are basically rolling the dice genetically.
You really are.
But, I mean, the physical maintenance and the health monitoring pale in comparison to their daily behavioral needs. The consensus across the veterinary and rescue profiles we reviewed is that an Husky requires at least 2 hours of vigorous exercise every single day.
Yeah, a casual stroll around the block will absolutely not cut it. As we established with their ancestry, they thrive when executing a specific task.
Like what? What's a good task for them?
Well, if you're going on a hike, strap a dog backpack on them and make them carry your water bottles. That mental stimulation of performing a duty burns far more energy than physical exertion alone.
Ah, because they have a purpose.
Right, and without that focused job, the Husky side makes them notorious Houdini-level escape artists, while the cattle dog side turns them into anxious, destructive chewers.
I really want to push back on this idealized image of designer dogs we see all over social media right now.
Oh, the Instagram aesthetic.
Yes. People scroll, they see a picture of a gorgeous blue-eyed Husky puppy and immediately want one for their apartment. But based on the sources, are these animals actually suited to be pets for a normal, modern family? Or are they basically unpaid interns who will absolutely trash the office if you don't give them enough paperwork?
That's a great way to put it.
Because forcing an Husky into a small urban apartment feels like setting the dog up to fail.
It is highly advised against by every rescue organization for exactly that reason. But I'd caution against framing the dog as the problem here. An Husky chewing through your drywall or jumping a 6-foot fence isn't exhibiting bad behavior in a moral sense.
Right. They aren't doing it just to make you mad.
Exactly. They aren't acting out of spite. It is simply misplaced working energy. They are doing exactly what their genetics demand they do. They are just doing it in an environment that doesn't accommodate their nature.
The real owner stories we found perfectly highlight this contrast. Take a dog named Rowdy from the Rescue Me forums.
Oh, Rowdy's story is heartbreaking.
It really is. He was found abandoned in a cramped trailer, completely bald from stress chewing his own fur. It's just this tragic image of an understimulated working dog. But once he was adopted by someone living on a farm, given acres to run, and provided a daily purpose, his entire temperament transformed.
A night and day difference.
He became this deeply devoted companion who, at the end of the day, sleeps perfectly curled up in the crook of his owner's knees.
It is a textbook example of how environment and purpose dictate canine behavior.
There was another story that stood out, a dog named Moose. His owner openly admits that Moose was so overwhelmingly difficult as a puppy that she literally cried in frustration.
Puppy blues are real, especially with this mix.
Oh yeah. He stole house slippers, he obsessively hoarded empty Gatorade bottles, and thanks to the Husky DNA, he was incredibly vocal and argumentative.
Very talkative dogs.
But she didn't give up. Through a strict, unyielding routine, miles of daily walking and professional training, they turned a corner.
The through line with these high-drive mixes is structure. Owners who embrace the workload end up with fiercely loyal partners. They take raw, chaotic energy and they channel it into a rock-solid working relationship.
The fundamental nature of the dog doesn't change, right? The owner simply adapts their management style to meet the dog's baseline needs.
So we've established that channeling this energy is the only way to save your sanity and, your drywall. But a very common reaction from exhausted owners is to think, I'll just get a second dog. They can entertain each other and tire each other out in the backyard.
That is a very dangerous assumption.
Because combining the Husky's unique blend of play styles with another dog brings us into the incredibly complex science of dog-to-dog dynamics. That chaotic playstyle actually makes multi-dog households a potential minefield.
It's a massive misconception that two energetic dogs will automatically cancel out each other's energy. If you look closely at the Siberian Husky forums, owners frequently highlight that Huskies play incredibly rough.
Like, how rough? Their play language involves intense body slamming, loud vocalizing, and a lot of open-mouth wrestling that could look absolutely terrifying to the uninitiated.
And then you fold in the Australian cattle dog's herding instinct, the chasing, the ankle nipping, the relentless desire to control the movement of whatever they are playing with.
Exactly. When you combine those two styles, you get a dog whose approach to play can be deeply offensive to other breeds. One owner on the forum made a brilliant comparison.
I love this quote.
They said watching an ACD and a Husky trying to play together is like watching a computer geek and a hydroponics expert trying to hang out.
That is so specific.
Right. They both have very specific, highly intense jobs, and they are both brilliant in their fields, but they just do not understand each other's worlds. It creates immediate friction.
It reminds me of a blind roommate situation freshman year of college. You can't just throw two completely different, highly opinionated personalities into a tiny dorm room and tell them to figure it out on their own. That always ends in a screaming match over the thermostat. So, if you're an owner looking to bring a second dog home, how do you actually know if your current dog will tolerate a roommate?
Well, the first step is discarding the myth that all dogs are universally friendly. Treating every dog like a blank slate of sociability is a huge mistake. The Tasia Blue Rescue provides a highly effective framework for this, breaking dog tolerance down into 4 distinct levels that owners really need to identify.
Okay, the first 2 levels seem pretty manageable. You have dog social, which is like the golden retriever stereotype. They love everyone, they instantly forgive rude canine manners, and they're just thrilled to be at the party.
Right, the social butterflies.
Then you have dog tolerant. These dogs are mostly indifferent. They have relaxed body language, and while they might not want to play with every single dog they meet, they succeed easily with housemates and generally avoid conflict.
The danger zone for an Husky owner, however, usually lies in level 3. Dog selective.
Dog selective? What does that look like?
A dog selective dog has very specific friends. They actively despise rude manners, and they strongly prefer to dictate the rules of play.
So they're kind of bossy.
Very bossy. They can be incredibly pushy. They can coexist with other dogs, but it requires active, vigilant supervision from the owner.
Okay.
And finally, you have level 4, which is dog aggressive. This dog has a hair trigger fuse, very limited to 0 dog friends, and needs heavy management. In many cases, for their safety and the safety of others, they truly just need to be an only dog.
And the data on which dogs to pair up is pretty definitive. Opposite sex pairs generally have the highest success rate. Bringing two females together, especially two high-drive, dog-selective females, is statistically much more likely to result in severe bickering and fights.
Determining where your dog falls on that spectrum requires you to become a student of their body language. You need to observe how their posture changes when a strange dog approaches on a leash, or when another dog tries to sniff their favorite toy.
Because it's not a fixed thing, right?
Not at all. You have to understand that a dog's tolerance level can shift. A dog-tolerant dog can easily shift into dog-selective as they age, if they experience a stressful life change, or even if you just drop a high-value item, like a new marrow bone, into the middle of the room.
If you're exhausted just listening to this, imagine being the dog trying to navigate these shifting rules. To survive this dynamic without a trip to the emergency vet, the sources agree you have to become what they call the job boss.
The job boss.
Yeah, and this isn't about some outdated alpha dog dominance theory. It's about being the shift manager who hands out the paperwork, controls the environment, and prevents chaos before it starts.
Becoming the job boss means adopting a stance of active preventative leadership. And the absolute prerequisite, the non-negotiable rule before you even think about bringing a second dog into your home, is that your first dog must be fully trained.
A trained dog acts as an anchor and a mentor to the new arrival. Because if your first dog lacks basic manners, bringing in a second dog does not have your workload by keeping them occupied.
No, it exponentially increases your workload.
Because now you have two out-of-control athletes feeding off each other's adrenaline and bad habits.
Exactly. And once you establish that foundation of obedience, managing the household becomes an exercise in identifying and controlling triggers. Conflicts in a pack rarely erupt out of nowhere.
What's the most common trigger?
The biggest one is resource guarding. This can be obvious, like fighting over a favorite toy or the food bowl, but it can also be incredibly subtle. Two dogs might escalate into a vicious fight over a single forgotten piece of kibble that rolled under the kitchen counter.
Wow. And the other major trigger is high arousal, right?
Right.
Like the Amazon delivery driver rings the doorbell or both dogs spot a squirrel darting across the fence line. Their adrenaline spikes instantly, and with no outlet for that massive surge of energy, that excitement aggressively redirects toward the nearest target, which is usually the other dog standing right next to them.
To mitigate these triggers, the management strategies from groups like Home or Pet are straightforward, but they demand rigorous consistency. The primary rule is separation. Whenever you leave the house, the dogs must be separated using crates or sturdy baby gates.
Even if they get along.
Even dogs that are best friends can have an off day. And if a scuffle starts over a toy while you are at the grocery store, it can easily escalate into a tragic, fatal outcome without you there to intervene.
They also recommend giving each dog at least 10 minutes of exclusive one-on-one time with you every single day. Take one dog for a quick ride to the hardware store, or do a short, isolated training session in the bedroom.
It reinforces your individual bond with them, which ensures they look to you for direction when the whole pack is together and distractions are high.
But despite the best management, we have to address the worst-case scenario. Prevention can fail, and a fight can break out. Here's where it gets really interesting. Think of breaking up a dogfight like being a bouncer at a nightclub. You don't just jump into the swinging fists, you use strategy and leverage.
Because if you do it wrong, you're going to the hospital.
Breaking up a dogfight is terrifying. Our natural human instinct, and I know I felt this urge when seeing dogs scuffle at the park, is to reach right into the fray and grab the dog by the collar to physically drag them away. But the rescue manuals explicitly warn that reaching for the collar is the absolute most dangerous thing a human can do. Why is that? What is the physiological mechanism happening in the dog that makes a collar grab so disastrous?
It comes down to a phenomenon called redirected aggression, driven by a massive dump of stress hormones. In the middle of a fight, a dog is completely flooded with adrenaline. They experience intense tunnel vision, focusing solely on the threat in front of them.
Right, they aren't thinking logically.
Not at all. If you reach your bare hand into that chaotic high-stakes zone and grab their neck or their collar, their autonomic survival reflex kicks in. They instantly snap and bite whatever just touched their most vulnerable area, their neck.
Oh, wow. So they don't even know it's you.
Exactly. In that fraction of a second, they aren't processing that it's their beloved owner. They are just reacting to a tactile stimulus. Human skin is incredibly fragile compared to a dog's coat, and a redirected bite can easily crush bones and sever tendons in your hand.
So if the collar is off limits, how do you safely break their focus?
You start with an auditory interrupt, drop a heavy textbook flat on the hardwood floor, slam two metal baking pans together, or use a compressed burst of citronella spray near their noses.
Just something to shock them.
Yeah. The goal is to create a sudden, shocking sensory input that snaps them out of that adrenaline-fueled tunnel vision for just a second.
And if the auditory shock doesn't work and they remain locked onto each other?
If you must physically intervene, and this ideally requires two people, you employ the wheelbarrow technique.
The wheelbarrow technique.
Yes. You grab the dog by the inguinal region, that is the exact area where their rear legs meet their soft belly. You lift their back legs off the ground and slowly back away.
It's essentially like removing the rear wheels from a front-wheel drive car. By lifting their back legs, you strip them of all their forward traction, their leverage, and their ability to plant their weight.
That is exactly the physics of it. But there is a massive caveat to this maneuver.
Yeah.
You absolutely must not pull backwards if the dog has a locked grip on the other animal.
Wait, why?
Because if you pull while their jaws are clamped down, their teeth will act like a saw, tearing the other dog's skin and causing horrific deep tissue lacerations.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You lift the back legs to remove their leverage, you freeze, you wait for the jaws to loosen or adjust, and only then do you pull them backward and out of the room.
Having that clinical, step-by-step safety plan in your head is the definition of being the job boss. It's about maintaining a cool, strategic head when the environment devolves into chaos. You anticipate the triggers, you read the subtle shifts in body language, and you step in to command the room before the tension ever boils over.
Because a high-drive working pack relies entirely on you for their structure, their boundaries, and ultimately their safety.
Whether you are currently researching breeders to adopt a hyper-energetic Husky puppy, or maybe you're considering bringing home a senior rescue like Matilda, the 11-year-old Australian cattle dog from our sources, who spent her entire life riding shotgun in a semi-truck.
I loved Matilda's story.
Right. Or if you're just trying to negotiate peace in your current chaotic living room, the foundational lessons remain the same. Understanding the profound history of these breeds and actively stepping up as the manager changes absolutely everything. You aren't just housing a couple of pets. You are managing a living, breathing, incredibly capable team.
And managing that team requires us to check our modern expectations at the door.
So let's leave you with a final thought to mull over today. We've spent this entire deep dive discussing how to manage, mitigate, and control these intense canine behaviors. But take a step back and consider the broader paradox we've created here.
For thousands of years, humanity selectively bred dogs like the Siberian Husky and the cattle dog to perform our hardest, most grueling physical labor in some of the most unforgiving environments on the planet. We intentionally rewired their neurology to crave miles of endless running, intense physical exertion, and complex problem solving.
And now, in the 21st century, we place these highly tuned professional athletes into quiet, comfortable suburban living rooms, and we become deeply frustrated when they chew the baseboards or act out.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, are a dog's behavioral problems actually flaws in the dog? Or are they simply our failure to provide them with the very purpose we created them for in the first place? Think about the Arctic sled dog and the Outback herder the next time your dog seems like they are entirely out of control. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.